Welcome back into the College Football Every Game on the Board podcast, going down each and every game. Part number 4 with our cleanup hitter, Kelly Stewart at Kelly in Vegas on Twitter, Barstool Sportsbook, wagertalk.com. Kelly, welcome in. How you feeling?
Hey, Drew. Busy Thursday. I'm headed to Boston tomorrow to see our good friend CT Betts. We're going to go to Stats in Southie to watch the game Saturday. We're going to Gillette Stadium on Sunday. And I'm not flying out till late Monday night because I have a feeling after those back-to-back days, I may need just to not be moving too fast Monday morning.
Absolutely. Yeah, we could get into that for sure throughout the segment. We got, what about 11 games here, 383, 384, down to 401, 402. This is part number 4. The first 3 parts you can watch below, and the next one is Robbie Vino coming up next. In order to hit all the games on the college football card, we're going down in rotation order, going to the Wager Talk live odds screen, those little numbers next to the team name. We're going down in numerical order here, starting off 383, 384, 9:30 Eastern kick. UCLA and Arizona State. We're seeing the Bruins minus 11-point road favorites, 66 being the total. Are you liking anything in Tempe Saturday night, Kelly?
You know, I originally had Arizona State written down. I thought this line was just a smidge too high, right? But the Bruins have a lot to play for, right? Right now, they're just one game back of, well, who would have thought? Bo Nix, Drew Martin, Betts' former quarterback, Oregon. So I think UCLA definitely isn't overlooking Arizona State here, which is kind of what I was trying to make that case for. So when you and I were talking off air, I always find it interesting how people try to cherry pick, right? We all do it, whether you're selling picks, whether you're a media person, whether you're just a random guy on Twitter trying to prove your case to whomever. We go through, we pick those stats out. And I'm guilty of it too, but I had to laugh because I'm sitting here asking you about dogs this week because I'm just racking my brain that every single thing I like this weekend is so disgusting. But yes, I do think this is just a few too many points for a Sun Devils team that we can see be scrappy, but I don't know if they're going to be scrappy enough to stop DTR and, of course, one of the best running backs in the Pac-12 in Charbonnet. This is tough. This defense has got to come to play with UCLA, though, and that's something that they've kind of shown some moments of this year, but also just had some really flat spots, most notably against that Oregon Ducks team. So we'll see how it ends up playing out. Slight lean here to UCLA.
Yeah, I'm with you. It'd be the Bruins or pass. I do worry because you bring up going to Oregon. They kind of had the no-show. They're having to go on the road again, win by doubles. You know, it's always kind of a tricky proposition there, but I do think UCLA is the stronger team. Good start here with Kelly Stewart at Kelly in Vegas. Flip the script, heading to Texas, 12 noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific kick here, 385, 386, Florida at Texas A&M, 56 being the total. We're seeing A&M -3, mostly -3.5 out there though, Kelly. So laying the price here with Texas A&M. Aggies hosting the Gators, home of the 12th man. You liking anything in College Station?
Not Jimbo to keep his job. I mean, after last week, I was on A&M. I said, okay, let's look towards this team as a buy low spot. Oh, you got a Gators team that has got some pretty decent losses under their belt. If you want to talk about how we all thought Utah was going to be a pretty good team this year, ended up beating them. Kind of a fluky win there. We're in the red zone, got the stop. They lost to Kentucky, who, while last week didn't look so great, is a pretty good football program. LSU and Tennessee. So this 4-4 Florida team maybe is a little bit better than we're giving them credit for. Obviously, defensively, they've had some woes themselves. And, well, I know everybody tried to give them the Heisman after that Utah game, but now we've seen AR-15 kind of brought back down to earth a little bit. I don't know what to make of Jimbo's squad. Just last week, as I mentioned, I went to bet this team. I bet this team, and I went to say, okay, listen, this is a great buy low spot. Here's an opportunity to capitalize. And they just looked so inept. Now, we've seen the Gators do the same, but as I mentioned, those are against higher caliber schools. I got to go with the Gators here, and I wish they were catching just a few more points, and I'd put them in my parlay. But at 3.5, I definitely think Florida can go in there and win this one.
I like Florida too. I really do. Can catch him 3.5 here. You bring up Jimbo Fisher. I mean, if he loses his job, how much money are they going to owe him, Kelly?
That's why he still has it.
Yeah.
That's the only logical reason why he still has his job. I mean, we talk about coaches and how they've robbed certain schools and things of that nature. I mean, I'm not saying Mike Norvell is doing a great job in Tallahassee, but Jimbo, man, he jumped ship and just has been so flat there in Texas A&M outside of a couple marquee wins.
Absolutely, Kelly. And you bring up looking towards Florida. Why can't they make your parlay? Does it have to be a certain amount of points?
It's not a certain amount, Drew, but ever since I've done it, I've always looked for around touchdown dogs. Like I want this to pay more than just 15-1, right? I'd like
Okay.
to keep it around the 30-1 or higher. Every once in a while it'll be 24, 25-1. And that's kind of looks like what it might be this week. But when you're looking in those field goal dog ranges, it's just not enough bang for your buck, if you will.
Okay.
So what I like to do is I find three dogs against the spread that are my favorites that I think have the best chance to win outright. So this week I've got 9 or 10 dogs, and I can't. It's really hard to pinpoint a favorite because they're all so disgusting.
Yeah, no, it
Like
is.
I don't like any of them. I mean, I'm sitting here looking at the math. I'm watching the reverse line movement like Virginia. I would love to call the Cavaliers upset. I don't know. I don't know if they can beat North Carolina. Do I think that 10, the opener, was too many points? Absolutely. The market agreed with me. It's down to 7, but it gets really tough this time of year. I was telling Megan, making money on money shots earlier, that I looked back at all of my old spreadsheets. Every time I hit a parlay, it was either in September or October. Now here we are, week 10, November. I've never hit one this late. And because you start to see teams stop caring, you start to see coaches getting fired, you start to see kids that are not going to go to a bowl game and kind of feel like their season is over. And if they don't have a shot to go to the NFL, what are they playing for? And you kind of have to guess, if you will, what the culture is like in the locker room, what we're seeing from coaches. And some of them are starting to sub out players to even see who may be on next year's roster. So there's a lot of interesting things that start to happen later on in the season. We'll see how it plays out. But I'm full disclosure. I know I'm supposed to be super confident. I am not that confident in this week's card after going 1-5 last Saturday.
Yeah, I'm picking up what you're laying down, Kelly, and it makes total sense. I mean, if you're looking towards the dogs later in the season, the number of games you can choose from, because quit starts to become part of the equation, and you don't want to pick those teams, so you don't have as many kind of games to pick from. I would guess
Like
that's part of the reason.
Well, that's part of it, but the other part of the caveat is like in 2 weeks from now, we're going to have all those rivalry games. So, the K-State KUs, the Florida States, like those type of games you can get the kids up for. You know that especially if they need to win that game to become bowl eligible, you'll start to kind of see it. So I like to keep an eye on things. But even like last week with Arkansas State, I said, well, this is too many points. Maybe they can get this one to win outright. And it was just such a bad pick. It was just because you're down in the muck and you're looking for like those dogs. It's like, okay, who can go on the road and win this game? It's gross. And I'm just trying to push through. I knew regression was coming for me after last year, but hopefully we can finish plus money and maybe hit a couple more outright underdogs.
Absolutely. At Kelly in Vegas on Twitter. We got Tulane and Tulsa up next. Also 9 a.m. Pacific kick here as we head to America's Conference. Green Wave -7, -7.5 at most shops. So going to have to put that hook on the 7 unless you shop around 57 being the total. Green Wave at the Hurricane here, Kelly.
Yeah, I had Tulsa on my long list. I really, really did. And then I started looking at it going, oh my God, this Tulane defense is so good. And whose defense is not good? Tulsa's. They've allowed over 32 points a game. I would love to say that Tulane doesn't care about revenge, but not only do they probably care, they've got a really good football program. So here's a chance to beat up on Tulsa, a team that has won 2 straight against them. We'll see if Tulsa comes to play, but I can't wager on them with my hard-earned dollars here. Not knowing that Tulane can exploit that defense, and I'm not sure Tulsa has the answers offensively to be able to match scores. Yes, over a touchdown is enticing, but got to pass here.
Yeah, good stuff. Willie Fritz got that program rolling.
Absolutely does.
In the Big Easy, yeah. Houston and SMU up next, Kelly. Saturday night, 7 o'clock. We're seeing SMU here, the Mustangs -3. Can also see a -3.5 out there. 66 being the total here, Kelly.
This one's tough too, Drew. I honestly think about it like this. Houston, what are we seeing from this team? We've seen kind of a little bit of a roller coaster ride here in the AAC. Dana Holgerson's seat isn't extremely hot by any means, but you're getting some question marks, right? You're going to the Big 12 next year. What's going on here with this program? We know that these teams tend to get up for one another. Mustangs already basically solidified themselves a bowl bid after if they can win this week. This is a tough one. I'm going to be really honest with you. Slight lean towards Houston catching 3 in the hook. If it's 3, I think this looks like a field goal type game. Houston, come on. You got to think that they're going to get up for an SMU team. You would, but they have just laid a couple eggs this year that I have not been impressed with this team at all.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean,
like
I just
I feel like they're going to go to the Big 12 and just become the new KU. From what I've seen from them this year, I'm going, are you guys going to be the new bottom feeders of the Big 12? What's happening? Because I had high hopes for this Houston team going into start the season.
Yeah, and Kelly, you bring that up. We do have one more Big 12 conference game, but I was talking to Tony Mejia about this. Well, first off, to your point, the Big 12 doesn't have a lot of bottom feeders. So, I mean, they might not have the heavyweights that like the SEC has, but they also don't have the bottom feeders. So it's kind of like a stronger conference than I think a lot of people realize. But next year with the new teams, do you know how they're doing the divisions, or have they decided? Do you know?
I actually have even seen rumors that Oklahoma and Texas might not be leaving even next year. So there's still a lot of kinks to be worked out here. I have no definitive answer there, but that I'm going to add that on my to-do list to kind of look it up and see what the new updates are, because I haven't seen anything in regards to what they're doing with Cincinnati, BYU, Houston, and UCF, because I'm curious about that as well. But yeah, I've even heard that there's some rumblings that Texas and Oklahoma may have to wait one more year prior to leaving for the SEC.
Sure. And how they structure that, it's a big deal. You know, like if you get stuck on the division, like in the SEC, as an Auburn fan, I can speak, from experience, it kind of isn't a good thing, to be in the tougher division. In the SEC, I know hasn't decided when they do move over what they're going to do, because they can't decide on it. Everybody wants to look out for themselves. So we'll see how
that's the thing. I mean, I kind of have always felt bad for West Virginia kind of being on an island over there, if you will. But now they're going to have Cincinnati close proximity. UCF's going to be on an island. You've got BYU on their own island, travel. There's going to be some, if they do an East-West, because before it was a North-South, if you remember with the Big 12. If they do something like an East-West or something of that, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what in the world they're going to do. That's a really good question. I wish I had an answer to.
It's going to be fun and change. It actually brings an advantage, in my opinion, to sports bettors, because we'll be able to put that into our handicap, and there won't be a whole lot of data for the odds makers to put out numbers. So it's a good thing going forward, betting Big 12. Making our way back down numerical order, 391, 392, every game on the board podcast, 5 o'clock Eastern here. Troy, UL Lafayette, going by Louisiana now. Catching 4 here. That's Troy, the Trojans, -4 on the road, 43 being the total. We get the Trojans at the Raging Cajuns here, Kelly.
Yeah, Troy, can you really disregard this Troy team? I looked at the Cajuns catching some points at home, but boy, Troy looks really good lately. And this is a team that I kind of tried to use their handicap for the game previously last week versus Arkansas State, and it absolutely backfired, because Troy is a much better defense than I think a lot of people give them credit for. But hey, ULL 5-0 against the spread as their last 5 as home dogs. Maybe that included some Billy Napier numbers. As I mentioned, us sports bettors like to cherry pick stats. But that being said, I'm going to pass here. I think this is going to be a really good Sun Belt West game. And I don't get to catch a lot of them these days, but looks like it should be a really fun one.
393, 394. Georgia State, Southern Miss. Speaking of a fun one, Hattiesburg, Mississippi. They know how to have a good time. -2 home favorites, 48 being the total.
Yeah, Drew, I'll be honest with you. I can't look at this game and tell you anything definitively. I can look at the stats, I can argue a certain side, but I think unless you've been watching some of these teams all season long, it's really tough to try to keep up. And we know that I traditionally stick to the Power 5 schools. I very rarely look at Conference USA, but every once in a while, a Sun Belt school will spark my interest, but I'm going to pass here.
Fair enough, Kelly. We got South Carolina at Vanderbilt heading to the SEC East here. We're seeing the Gamecocks minus 6.5-point road favorites, 48.5 being the total in Nashville.
God, if South Carolina just didn't turn the ball over, what kind of final score do you think this would be? I mean, it could be a really fun one to beat up on a Vanderbilt school who looked really great week 1 versus Hawaii. Since then, not so much. They got to get the win so they can become bowl eligible. We spoke about that. They still have Florida, Tennessee, and Clemson to play. So this has got to be circled as a must-win game. So I'm going with South Carolina here. I originally had down Vanderbilt as part of that disgusting mix. Like, can Vandy shock the world here? I don't think they can, unfortunately.
Yeah, interesting stat there with the schedule going forward. They need this one bad. We got Auburn. Speaking of a team that needs this one bad, Auburn, Mississippi State, 7:30 Eastern kick in Starkville, 397-398, the rotation number, 50.5 being the total. Mississippi State minus 13. Kelly, I love this matchup. Cadillac Williams, oh my gosh, he gets the head coaching job. That's kind of cool. He was the running back.
I think it's totally cool. Can he coach? That's what I want to know. Brian Harsin's gone. I love, Drew, when somebody fires their coach. I don't care if it's NBA. I don't care if it's a professional golfer that fires their caddy. I want to bet on that the next game because it's kind of like a rejuvenation, if you will. My problem is I haven't heard anything out of Auburn, not a single thing. And that's why I was going to kick it back to you. Like, what are you hearing? Are you getting any side of good information? The guys are happy that Harsin's gone. They're happy that Williams is in. They're not happy at all. I mean, this comes a lot to play. I think this line is really high. 13.5 is way too high. I love Mike Leach, but this is not a good Mississippi State team. They're just subpar, in my opinion. I haven't seen a lot of greatness out of them. Hell, they would have got shut out by Alabama if it wasn't for a late score that Nick basically gifted them and said, here you go. Now we don't have to shut you guys out. I think we've seen just some really odd regression from this Mississippi State team. So again, 13.5 points. Would love to be on the Tigers.
Yeah,
just have my reservations.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. I mean, this isn't your, 101 level handicap for sure. You got to really dig into this. I mean, Cadillac Williams, like you bring up, there's unknowns no matter what happened. I mean, even if people are like, oh, we're so happy in the locker room, we love him. Still, he goes out there. Nobody really knows what's going to happen until the lights go on. I don't know, Kelly. Auburn traditionally doesn't travel west very well for whatever reason.
You did say that on the Hustle last night.
Yeah, it have kind of had our number when at home. And Auburn, I will say this, they haven't quit on the season. And we've talked about this before as well. Like, even against that Georgia, they were in it for a little while.
That's true.
They haven't laid down.
Against LSU? Yeah.
Yeah,
right.
Kind of should have won that game almost.
Probably.
And now LSU's in the top 10. So I'm with you. I mean, I think 2 touchdowns is a lot, but at the same time, Auburn has not been a moneymaker, and it's just tough to bet on those. But we do get the change as a sports bettor, change at the head coaching position. So, and they need this game. If they're going to make a bowl game, they got to win this one.
They have to. And you would think they would go in and at least put up a fight. Maybe Auburn first half is the look.
Yeah. Might not be a bad look because you're probably going to see some things offensively that aren't on film. So you might surprise them for a big play or two. Speaking towards the Auburn side, might not be a bad one to circle. But keep in mind, everything I'm saying, I'm sort of biased and have definitely been.
I don't think you're biased. I wouldn't ask your opinion if I thought you were truly biased. I just know that sometimes fans of certain teams, myself included, you can get some good information. You're friends with a beat writer or a coach or whatever it is. It's like, hey, how are things going? And then they send back the emoji with the guy drinking coffee and there's fire everywhere. Things are not going so well. It's just kind of one of those Kind of one of those deals.
Absolutely. Hey, well, the next two games, Kelly, two good ones to finish off the segment here, guys, and then we'll bring in Robbie Vino. Check out Kelly Stewart, Barstool Sportsbook. She's got the show Money Shots with Megan Making Money on the YouTube channel. I believe Barstool YouTube channel, Kelly,
So
is
we
that the best
actually
way?
started a Barstool Sportsbook YouTube channel. So there is
Okay.
sportsbook specific stuff. So we're working on building that up. We do money shots there, Pick Central, Barstool Pick'em, any basically gambling show is going to
Okay.
be on there so that it doesn't get lost in the mix of all the fun stuff that goes on outside of sports betting.
Okay, cool. And also check out Kelly on the Hustle Wednesday nights, 6 o'clock Eastern time on the Wager Talk YouTube channel, and bet on it as well. She'll be in Boston at the bar restaurant called Stats, drinking some Viva Tequila Seltzers with Chris Thurston and company. So if you're in the Boston area, hit her up on Twitter at Kelly in Vegas. Kelly, we got two games left here. Tennessee and Georgia, 399-400. The rotation number, 3:30 Eastern, CBS, SEC, game of the week, 66.5 being the total. Georgia Bulldogs, -8-point home favorites. Number one versus number two. Game of the century. What do you like?
Game of the century. I bet against Tennessee last weekend. You and I both like Kentucky. And I said, I think that being a square dog is one thing, but being like a sharp square dog is like the worst. I felt so good about that Kentucky pick. Like I did. I felt like it was like, it just was just too sharp of a handicap. Look ahead spot to this game. Now, congratulations to the Vols running one of the fastest offenses in college football right now is a pretty exciting thing to see. And so there's a lot to unpack in this game. Joe Ranieri and I do bet on it every single Wednesday. He's talked about Josh Heupel and his first half successes dating back to UCF. I think I brought it up on here before as well. So now he is 21-2 in the first half since the last update. So listen, I think if you like Tennessee, you look at them here towards the first half. And the reason being is because we see a comparable team. Now, I know it sounds really crazy to compare Kent State to Tennessee, but they do run a similar style of very up-tempo offense. Mm-hmm. Tennessee is even faster than Kent State, if you can believe that. Go figure. But Kent State kind of gave Georgia a scare there, at least in the first half. Now, if you like Georgia, it makes sense. Let me tell you about Georgia and why I completely understand why anybody would want to back Georgia. Number one, red zone offense. Number two, red zone defense. Number three, in pass defense efficiency. Number four, in time of possession. Now, I bring up time of possession because that was my big handicap last week for the Wildcats. That's what they do. They own the time of possession. I thought they'd be able to slow down that offense. And in fact, it did nothing. Tennessee is almost dead last in time of possession because it doesn't matter to them. They just want to score.
Right.
And that's my big question mark here with the Georgia Bulldogs. Can they keep up offensively with Tennessee? Is this going to be a shootout? How do you see this game panning out? I do lean towards Tennessee here. I'm with Joe. I bet them in the first half. This is a Tennessee team that, myself included, didn't have high hopes for. I thought they'd win 8 or 9 games, but I mean high hopes, national championship hopes. And I didn't think that they would beat that Alabama team. They got a nice call go their way, and they kicked a big-time field goal, and they got the win. Could that happen here in Athens? I don't know. Athens gets pretty wild. They have a huge home field advantage. But is 8 points too many? It might be. And now if I wake up Sunday morning and I see the final score 51-41, would I be shocked at all? Georgia wins that game by 10? No, of course not. There's just a lot of unknowns here. So the only way I'm getting involved is Tennessee in the first half. I believe it was +5 when I bet it yesterday. So if you like Georgia, I'd say bet them for the full game, just because I do think Tennessee is going to come out there early and punch them in the mouth like we saw with Kent State.
Great breakdown there. We got one game left, 401, 402, 12 noon Eastern, kicking us off, 9 a.m. Pacific here. Texas Tech and TCU. Good one in the Big 12 here, Kelly. 69 being the total, one of the higher totals on the board. Do note it opened 71, so a little bit of under money. -8.5. That's TCU, the Horned Frogs, at home. Texas Tech, the Red Raiders. I think they're riding a little bit under the radar here, Kelly. I think they got a shot. It's just so tough to step in front of TCU. Any thoughts on this one?
It's not tough to step in front of TCU. Drew Martin, I did it last week. And Sonny Dykes threw a 30-yard bomb into the end zone with less than 15 seconds left or something ridiculous and just killed my +7.5. I would love to be on Texas Tech, and I need to have a couple glasses of wine before I can probably lock it in, because I need some liquid courage here after that beatdown last weekend. TCU has overachieved more than any other Big 12 team. They're the luckiest. If you follow any like basketball power ratings, we all know that Ken Palm talks about luck, and it's always interesting because it is a good handicap. Well, guess what? TCU's had calls their way. They've had some really great luck, particularly great luck when coming to injuries, and that's how they beat my Kansas State Wildcats down 28-10 in that one. I'm not buying the TCU hype. I'm not buying this entire setup that they have. I just don't know if I can trust the Red Raiders on the road. If this was in Lubbock, I would be all over Texas Tech, no questions asked. Just like I was with Tech versus Texas. They get up for big games. I think last week's loss wasn't as bad as it looked like on paper to Baylor. I only got to catch a couple glimpses of it. This is tough. I've had them on my list. I've circled them. I've crossed them out. I've circled them. I've crossed them out. I told Chris Thurston last night in the Hustle, I want no part of this. At 1 o'clock today, you know what I did? I did a show with Adam Trigger and Dave Koken, and I think they may have talked me into betting the Red Raiders.
Picking that
9-4 against the spread as an underdog, 5-0 when they're giving up less than 30 points per game on average. Yeah, TCU putting up a ton of points. But it's just been really hard for me to get a good grip on this Red Raider school. Like, I just don't know what to make of them sometimes.
Oh, yeah. I agree with you. I think it snowballed against them against Baylor. It looked a little bit worse than it really was. I got them circled. I don't know. Haven't bet them yet. Plus 8.5. Can get them as high as plus 9 right now.
I was going to say they open 9.5 in some shops. If you got to bet the Red Raiders, I feel like you just got to do it. Stop waiting, because I do think we'll see an 8, maybe even a 7.5 come kick. The bookmaker is going to bait you into betting the Horned Frogs, bottom line. And there's a reason why the Horned Frogs really didn't get a lot of respect in the polls this week. I think a lot of people thought that they should have been ranked higher than other teams. I am not one of those people.
Did you have any quick thoughts you wanted to throw out there about the rankings? Do you agree with them? Does it upset you?
Yeah, I mean, come on. Tennessee number 1. Give me a break. Like, for what? They're not the best team. Why are they number 1? Somebody riddle me this one, Batman. I think that sometimes they do the committee, if you will, or the AP voters, or the coaches poll, whoever it is. None of them follow actual power ratings like we do in Vegas. None of them take into account, in my opinion, real strength of schedule and power ratings. They may take into account their strength of schedule that started at the beginning of the year. But I think the big thing is that us sports bettors, we adjust throughout the year, and we can walk back on some of the things like, okay, maybe I rated this team too high, rated this team too low, but very rarely are teams just coming out of the woodworks. And that's what I think is happening here with the college football playoff. They're trying to like mix it up. They're trying to like cause some chaos, right? Some talking points. And that's what they did by putting Tennessee number 1. They wanted to just kind of, stir it up a little bit and see what they could come up with. And I'm not saying Tennessee doesn't deserve to be in the top 5. I'm just not sure that I'm ready to write off Alabama just yet. I'm not sure that Georgia shouldn't be number 1. There's just a lot of interesting dynamic that goes there. I think they also remember a lot of what they saw last, which I think is a handicapper's thing that we try not to do. You never want to overreact too much to what you saw last. You never want to overreact to like a 1 or 2 game sample size. But those committees, that's exactly what they do. Just like, here you go, chaos. You'll see a team like K-State, right, lose to TCU with a 3rd-string quarterback, and then they drop them a bunch. Or you'll see Texas somehow sneak back in to the top 25 on a bye week. Like, they were on a bye week. How'd they get back in the top 25?
Yeah, I'm picking up what you're like. I like that. I mean, I never thought of it that way, but in their defense, maybe it is good for marketing the sport, because over the last couple of years, it has been a lot of the same. So if you're not one of those teams, it's kind of boring. I mean, maybe it's a good thing.
And you get the fandom riled up. You still got your 2 SEC teams, because they can't not do that, Drew. So they still got their 2 SEC teams. But like, I know we didn't talk about this Alabama game, but really we're just going to snub Alabama. We're just going to write off Alabama as who lost on the road by 3 to that same number 1 team. I find it very odd.
Well, how about how they put Alabama ahead of TCU?
I think it's hilarious because Alabama would be at least a touchdown favorite over TCU.
Yeah.
On a neutral field.
But then it gets into the are we voting in the 4 best, or are we voting in the 4 most deserving? Because I don't always think those are the two same things.
Those are not the two same things. And also and I was arguing with this guy on Twitter and I finally just muted the whole thing because I said that Texas is always overvalued because it's true. They are. You know that you're going to get Texas bettors, Notre Dame bettors, now Alabama bettors, Georgia bettors. You're going to get these bigger schools with a ton of backing, whether it's TV money, whether it's donor money, it doesn't matter. It's still money. If you follow the money, Vegas is not stupid. So you got to have certain teams sneak back in the top 10. TCU is smaller. I haven't Googled this, so don't fact check this, but full on disclosure, TCU is a smaller school than Kansas State. Nobody cares about TCU.
Okay. Yeah. I mean,
so if nobody cares about K-State, why would they ever care about TCU? Why would they ever care about smaller schools? Like KU, all of a sudden, everybody started watching because they are well known. They just won a national championship in basketball. So here they come out starting off 5-0. You're going to get eyeballs. At the end of the day, all these people care about is eyeballs and dollar signs and ticket sales.
Yeah.
They're already losing a ton of money by other people paying these kids to go to different schools. I've got some crazy conspiracy theories on the NCAA in itself, but we'll save that for another show.
Sure. Follow her on Twitter at Kelly in Vegas. You'll get a lot of it. Follow the money, like a lot of things in life, in college football being one of them in some form or fashion. Kelly, up against it time-wise. Great segment as always. Any final thoughts? Do you have a most confident play of the section that you like the most here?
I laid the 7 with Iowa State earlier in the week. I thought we'd see it go a little bit higher, but Neil Brown's seat is very hot, and here's a chance for this Iowa State offense to get clicking because West Virginia's defense is absolutely atrocious. And then I also, as I mentioned, I took the 4.5 with Iowa, as well as what else have I already bet? That's it. Those are the only 2 games I've actually bet with my hard-earned dollars. I bet 3 NFL games, Bears, Saints, and Colts. Isn't that crazy? That's crazy. I have not. I'm waiting to see somewhere some of this dust settles. I'm waiting to hear about whether Van Dyke's a go for Miami. I was waiting to hear about the Tulsa quarterback, but as I mentioned, I kind of wrote them off with their bad defense. Looking at BYU, UNLV, Texas Tech, Army, Virginia, and James Madison for the parlay, Drew. I got a lot of work ahead of me this afternoon with all of that scum.
Oh, that's an ugly card there, Kelly. But sometimes those can be profitable. Is it cool if I'm sending out a tweet with every game on the board, Iowa +4, or would you rather me tweet you with another one?
Tweet it out.
Okay. All right. Kelly Stewart, ladies and gentlemen, Barstool Sportsbook, wagertalk.com. Check her out on Bet On It as well. Here on the Every Game on the Board Hustle. Got a lot going on. Money shots on the Barstool Sportsbook YouTube. So always a great segment with Kelly. Guys, check her out on Twitter at Kelly in Vegas. Feel free to reply below. We'll be right back with Robbie Vino finishing off the last segment for Every Game on the Board. Thanks.